I don't think ideas are dangerous at all. I think ideas are free. Everybody has them. Some are good, some are bad. I think jihad's a pretty crap idea because it involves a justification for insane violence. They're all out there ideas. I mean, the most dangerous idea of all is freedom because there's nothing in it. Freedom is going off the building. It's between going off the building and hitting the pavement. And we all have that thing, you know, that I think, that passion for autonomy. You had it when you were little, when you were growing up. You thought, well, you just get out of my face. I just decide what I'm going to do. You have to program me all the time.
Were you like that as a kid?
Well, actually, I had a mother who was probably Asperger's. So I wasn't being supervised. I was made to work really hard. I cleaned the house constantly. And I thought in my naivety that my mother cleaned it every other day. The fact is she didn't clean it at all. I did all the cleaning, but I didn't know that. I didn't go, I could disappear, mainly because she'd forgotten I existed. But I couldn't, we didn't do anything. You know, I had to read books because otherwise I was just left staring at the wall.
How did you feel?
Oh, okay, not a problem. I didn't realize that my mother was crazy. And that's tough for a kid, you know. Everyone else knew she was crazy, they just forgot to tell me.
When did you realize?
Oh, not until I was in Cambridge. And my uncle swung by on he worked in the Department of Aviation here, and he was in Europe for a conference, and he decided he'd come to Cambridge. And we were sitting having coffee, and he said, you know, your mother's crazy. And I said, Uncle Bernard, you could have told me. It would have made life, maybe it would have made life harder, I don't know.
How was she at that time?
Oh, she was, look, Asperger's is not a big deal, you know. I mean, she didn't believe other people were real. And she thought that it didn't matter what she said to them. Because she was getting a reaction from them. She was managing them. Which meant she had no superego. She had no commitment to truth or honesty or directness or anything. Which meant that for me, it was an absolute collision course. I'd think, no, you can't say that. But she would have just said it. And so when I was about 12, it got pretty rough. And then by the time I was 18, I was afraid I was going to kill her. I woke up one night at the foot of the stairs. I'd sleepwalked, and she slept on the ground floor of the house. And I thought, what am I doing here? And then I thought, have I killed her? And I thought, then, time to get out of here. I'm going. I'm off.
What was your relationship like in later life?
Well, I wasn't here. I left it to my brother and sister to deal with her, out of a mistaken idea that she was more aware of them as her children than she was of me, which turns out to be wrong. And I think my brother might have forgiven me for abandoning them, but it's more complicated with my sister, whom I love more than anyone else on earth.
Did your mother read The Female Eunuch?
Did she read anything? She would have said she'd read it, but she thought she was cleverer than most people, so she would have thought she knew what was in it. I mean,
how did your family react to your growing profile and, you know, sort of general sort of stature in academia, but also out in the world?
They didn't know anything about most of it. There's a funny story where one of my boyfriends was on the ski lift at Hotham, and there was a woman down the end of the compartmenty thing who was talking to people, and he was recognizing her body language. And when they were getting off the thing, he said to her, "Why do you remind me of Germaine Greer?" And she said, "Shh, she's my sister." So he sent me a note, a letter, in those days we didn't have email, saying that this funny thing had happened. And I thought, poor baby, my poor little sister, because she doesn't have my name, obviously, and she doesn't look like me, but she's my sister, you betcha.
When The Female Eunuch came out, when you reflect on that, did you expect the reaction? and the legacy over this time?
Well, you're a bit young to remember, my dear, because the first reaction was just incredulity and contempt. So that I did, what, 50 talk shows where I was condescended to by the male host. And some of those have been appearing on YouTube, and people have been really shocked at the way I was spoken to and the kinds of things that were said to me by people, you know, with primetime talk show slots. I had to back off always because I was being called strident, so that meant I had to speak with a very soft voice. I had to try and short-circuit all their strategies. And it was said to me quite early on, a woman from, one of the American glossies said to me, "Do you realize your life will never be the same again?" And I said, "No, and I like my life. I don't want it to be different." And it wasn't that different. I mean, you don't have to be a celebrity, you don't have to live that life. And I never have lived it. And Australians have always thought that I was desperate for any sort of publicity because they haven't understood that I never go to anything. And I don't have Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. I don't do any of that. I get criticised, as Australians say. They think that's a serious word. You've been criticised. And I say, yes, well, obviously. What do you want? You expect me to want people to bow down and say, "Daniel, come to judgment. Oh, this woman is so clever. Everything she says is true." If that happened, I think I'd probably jump off a rather high building. So I expect people to disagree. I don't say things that are commonly accepted. But I do think that most of what I say is blindingly obvious. That when you actually sit back and think about it, you think, oh, obviously. That's what happened with the Female Eunuch. You know, people thought, yeah, you know, this has all been happening, and I've been thinking it was just me, as women tend to do. And suddenly I realized it's not just me. This is impossible. You can't live this way. And so I've got to invent another way to live. And so that's how that went. Now, I was told then that I'd removed the basis of Western civilization. And I thought, well, if that is the basis of Western civilization, get rid of it. Because it means it's resting on the shoulders of 51% of oppressed people. That means it's crap. Get rid of it. But on the other hand, you can't liberate anyone but yourself. So the women had to stand up and flex their muscles and throw off the manacles. And that's what they did. And I'm still amazed and touched. It just gets me. I think, there you are, you know, married to your stockbroker. You've got 2 children. You've got a sack of debt that you've got to deal with. And you say to yourself, I can handle everything, but I can't handle him. I'm sick of apologizing for being. I'm sick of pretending I have no ideas of my own. I'm sick of being condescended to. I'm sick of making, you know, contributions to a discussion of something and being ignored. I'm losing self-confidence. I'm beginning to doubt myself. I'm out of here. And they go without knowing where they're going. They know it's going to be 16 years of poverty and loneliness, because what happens when you walk out of your marriage is you lose all that. And I look at these women and I think, you did that. You just went there. You knew what was in store for you and you did it.
Do they know?
Yes, they do know. When I say to them, I can remember being in Darwin for the literary festival, which is one of the good ones, and I was talking about that. I was talking about the blind courage of women who just walk out on something, they put all their eggs in that basket, and they suddenly realize that it's not working, and they've got to rescue the rest of their life. And of course, the woman who actually, all the people involved in running the festival had been through that very thing. And they were kind of looking at me because no one had ever said that to them. No one had ever said, you know, I'm speechless. I think you people are amazing. I don't know, I couldn't even go there. I couldn't even have the kids because I would have been so panic-stricken by that amount of commitment. And they've done it, and then they've picked up the kids and they've headed for the hills. And I just think, You're amazing. And that's where the next generation of feminists is coming from. It's not me, I'm over.
You're not over.
Oh shit, yes, I'm over, don't you worry.